People who've escaped a cult. What horrifying secrets did you discover? I was only 6 years old when my parents started touching me. I grew up with 35 brothers in a household where we were forced to worship our daddy, who we would call God. As much as I hated living here, it was the only life I'd ever known. It was normal to me. However, I was always weirded out by the large men in animal masks who would touch us late at night. None of us liked it, but we were forced to take turns in partaking in it. Some of us had considered escaping, but had grown up being taught we'd be punished by Satan himself, which was enough to make us stay. How could we have known any better? That was, until last week. We were sharply woken up from our bunk beds as normal, ready for homeschooling. But something was off. One of our brothers was absent from class, which is never the case unless someone has been sent to the torture room. But he hadn't misbehaved, so he was missing for a different reason. Mother, or at least the person I thought was our mother, looked extremely worried and jittery today. We all called this woman our mother, but had no idea if they were our real parents, and I would never dare to ask. Immediately, she began questioning us in regard to our brother's absence from class that morning. I said I didn't know where he was. That was the truth, or half of the truth. She insisted that because we share a room, I must have known something about his whereabouts. Again, I said I didn't know where he was, trying to act as normal as possible. After a while of her sitting there, staring at me with those burdening eyes, both of her arms folded across the edge of the desk, I finally suggested that we go looking for him. And just where do you suppose we could find him? She asked. The woods, maybe. You know we aren't to go into the woods. I don't think he would have made it that far anyway. Somebody surely could have stopped him in time. I don't know then. I don't know where he is. She stared at me for another infinite moment. Finally, the tension in her eyes broke. Well then, you'll just have to go to your room and don't come out. So I did. I trotted back to my room. It was only a few steps away from her office, but tears had already begun to well in my eyes because I knew where my brother was. He did go into the woods, and I knew the exact path that he told me he was going to take. Like my brother, I wanted to leave. Unlike my brother, I was too afraid at that time to face the unknown. After all, I had never been in those woods, nor had I ever seen what sort of a world existed beyond them, if any, for all I knew. I, along with all of my brothers, were made to stay in our rooms until the next day, when again at exactly 6:30 we would hear the banging on doors telling us to come to class. I remember that morning. I remember my mother looked hollow, perhaps what a grieving mother looking for her missing son would look like. We said our daily prayer to our Father and were immediately greeted in the classroom by a lecture on what happens if we run away. She wasted no time telling us the story of a boy that ran from home decades ago. That boy, just a teenager at the time, was called upon by Satan to run away and was found mutilated across the forest just a few days later. That is the prophecy, my mother stated. You have the choice to leave, but do you choose morality, comfort, and our goodwill? Or do you choose immorality and a diseased, evil livelihood? She walked toward the door, careful not to let her black skirt drag the floor, and opened it. If you choose to leave, she continued, I will not stop you. It would be an interference with God's will. A cool breeze flowed into the room. I sat in silence for a moment, contemplating, twiddling a button on my shirt. She always told us we should try to enjoy the rituals with the men in the animal masks, even if it hurts. I'll stay, I muttered, along with the rest of the class. I had no real intentions of staying, and I knew that. Truthfully, I was afraid of the possibility that she was right, that I was choosing the will of Satan and turning my back on all that is good. Good, my mother said, then went directly into a new lesson. Days and days went by until finally, on a night of no other significance,